Today we're going to be looking at the incredibly entertaining Wailord deck. Now this deck is brilliant because it can catch some trainers out when you're going against them, but in all honesty it's not going to probably win any World Championships or any League Challenges very soon. However, it's a great fun deck which really gets you and your opponent thinking about how to deck build. It's a great side deck to have if you're looking for a new challenge. So let's get into the deck list. If you liked today's video, don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe down below and let me know, will you be using Wailord? To start off with, you'll need 4 copies of Wailmer. Then at the start of the show, you'll need 3 copies of Wailord. And Wailord has an incredibly dangerous 240 HP, which puts it on par with most EXs. And its attack is Hydro Pump. For 4 energy, it does 10 plus 50 more damage for each water energy attached to it. So if you've got 4 water energy on it, it's doing 210 damage, which is incredibly good really. It's knocking out in a lot of 1 prizes, and it's also taking out things for weakness. It's just a little bit shy of some EXs, however with an extra water energy, if it's got 5 on there, you're knocking out most EXs as well. And so that is Wailord, the star of the show. Now you might be thinking, but how am I going to get 4 energy on this Pokemon? Well, this is where Frigibax comes in. So we're going to be running 2 copy of Frigibax, 1 copy of Octobax, and 2 copies of Baxcalibur, with that amazing Super Cold ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic water energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. So we're trying to get as many water energies in our hands as possible, and then attaching them all at once onto our Wailords using Baxcalibur. Which means if we've got 6 energy in hand, we're then doing 310 damage with Wailord, which is knocking out almost every EX, except from Charizard. However, with 7, you're then knocking out any Pokemon in the game. Then we're going to be running 2 Revavroom, and the incredible draw engine in our deck, Revavroom, a Pokemon you don't see very often in decks. However, he is actually a very incredible draw engine with that rumbling engine ability. You must discard an energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 6 in your hands. This is a great way that we can get through our deck and get to the cards that we need. And we don't mind discarding energies in this deck because we have ways of retrieving them back. Then we're also running 2 copies of Regigigas with that incredibly dangerous Jewel Breaker attack. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a Terra Pokemon, this attack does 230 more damage. So it does 100 plus 230, which is 330 damage, which means you're taking out any Terra Pokemon in the game with this. And what's also incredible is this is just a 1 prizer. All these cards are 1 prizes, which means that we can win the prize race if we're knocking out their EX Pokemon. We're also taking 1 copy of Fezandipiti EX with that amazing Flip the Script ability. Once during your turn, if any of your Pokemon were knocked out, during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards. Now onto our trainer cards. We'll be using 4 copy of Arven, which lets us draw 1 Pokemon tool and 1 item card. For a bit of disruption to our opponent, we're going to be running 3 copies of Iono, which means both players shuffle their hands, put them at the bottom of their deck, and then you draw a card for each of your prize cards remaining. And in all honesty, Wailord is usually behind on prizes, so we're usually drawing more than our opponents. We'll be running 1 copy of Boss's Orders, so we can switch our opponent's active Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon. We'll be running 1 copy of Morty's Conviction. You can use this card only if you discard another card from your hand. Then we get to draw a card for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Really useful if you're going against an opponent who's used Area 0. Then we'll be running Buddy Buddy Poffin, which means we can search our deck for 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. And the reason we've only got 2 of these is because we're only getting Frigibax or Varoom with this card. Then we're going to be running 2 copies of Nestball, so we can get our Wailmers or our Regigigas or our Fez. Then this card is incredibly important in this deck. We're going to be throwing energies away with Revavroom, and this is Superior Energy Retrieval. You can only use this card if you could discard 2 other cards from your hand. You get to put 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand, which means with Revavroom, we've discarded them, they're in the discard pile. When we use this, they go into our hand, and then we can use Baxcalibur to put all 4 down onto our Wailords. Then we're going to be using 1 copy of Earthen Vessel, so we can discard a card from hand to get 2 basic energies. We'll be using 1 copy of Super Rod, so we can shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from our discard pile back into our deck. We'll be running 1 copy of Counter Capture, because we're usually behind on prizes, which means we get to switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. Our stadium of choice will be Artisan, which means once during each player's turn, they can search their deck for a basic Pokemon, which isn't an EX, which is a great way of getting into Regigigas or into those Wailmers. Then our ace spec of choice will be the Precious Trolley, which means we can search our deck for any number of basic Pokemon and put them onto our bench. And this is mainly because those Wailmers are quite tricky to get out because of their high HP. If you don't want to run Precious Trolley though, I can also recommend that you could want to use Neutralization Zone, which means you can prevent all damage done to Pokemon that don't have a rule box. So if you play this, your Wailords can't be knocked out by EX Pokemon. We're also running one copy of Switch because Wailord has an incredibly high retreat cost. He has a retreat cost of 4, so once he's in the active, he's usually stuck in there, which means our opponent, if they're trying to buy time, they can gust up our Wailord and really slow us down. And same with our Wailmers, they have 3 retreat cost. So our switch is very, very important so we can get out of the active. Then we have one copy of Night Stretcher, so we can put a Pokemon or basic energy card from our discard pile into our hand. We'll also run 3 copies of Rare Candy, and this is so we can skip Arctibax and get Frigibax into Baxcalibur. We're running 2 copies of TM Evo, so we can use this hopefully going second to evolve either our Frigibax into Arctibax, our Varoom into Revavroom, or our Wailmers into Wailords so they can start trying to do their big damage. Then we're running 2 copies of Luxurious Cape. If the Pokemon this card is attached to doesn't have a rule box, it gets plus 100 HP. If it's knocked out though, your opponent gets to take an extra prize. Now that makes opponents very, very scared because that actually turns Wailord into a 340 HP Pokemon. And I have a lot of opponents that go, hang on, how much HP now? And all of a sudden he's got more HP than a Charizard EX, which makes him incredibly difficult to knock out. And then we'll also be running 2 copies of Reversal Energy. You have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, and if this card is attached to an evolution Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box, this counts as 3 energies at a time. And what's also amazing is this does count as water energy. So if you're behind on prizes, which we most likely will be, this would then count as 3 water energies on our Wailord. And then we'll be rounding off the deck with 8 water energies. And that's the Wailord deck list. It's an incredibly entertaining deck, and it gets everybody at your locals talking, and everybody loves to see the amazing Wailord appear. He's almost a meme Pokemon on his own, just from his massive size, which makes him super popular. So thank you again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe down below, and let me know will you be using Wailord. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you and good night.